Let me tell you something from my own life, something I've learned both in the gym and in the world. Strength has nothing to do with the noise you make. You see, when I started bodybuilding, there were always people in the gym yelling, slamming weights, trying to make everyone look at them. But the real champions, the real beasts, were the ones who came in, stayed focused, lifted with perfect form, and left without a show. That's the same principle India showed when faced with this nuclear threat. Pakistan's army chief tried to use fear as a weapon, tried to make the world look at him through big words and dangerous talk. But India? They didn't start shouting, they didn't start flexing every muscle for the cameras. They stood there, calm, composed, disciplined, and that's where true strength is born. Discipline is not about reacting in the heat of the moment. It's about mastering yourself so well that no one can shake you from your position. It's easy to get triggered, easy to throw back insults, easy to puff up your chest and try to look strong. But looking strong and being strong are two very different things. Being strong means you can take the pressure, the insults, the threats, and still think clearly. It means your emotions don't control you, you control them. That's why when India responded, they didn't lower themselves to the level of reckless talk. They reminded the world that strength is not proven by threatening destruction, but by maintaining composure in the face of it. Think about it. If you're in a competition and your opponent starts talking trash, what's the best way to win? Do you waste your energy arguing? No. You save your energy for the stage, for the lift, for the moment that really counts. India saved their energy for action, not reaction. They know that showing discipline under pressure earns respect, not just from your friends, but from your rivals too. In life, your biggest enemy might try to push your buttons to make you act out of emotion, but if you stay disciplined, you take away their power. They can't win if they can't control you. And that's what people miss. Strength is not just muscles, it's not just weapons, it's not just the size of your army or your voice. Strength is in your mind, strength is the ability to hold your ground while others lose theirs. That's why discipline is so powerful, it creates a foundation that nobody can break. If you build your power on anger, it crumbles the moment you lose control. But if you build it on discipline, it becomes unshakable. I've seen this in every area of life, bodybuilding, business, politics. You'll always have someone trying to provoke you, to knock you off balance. The amateurs fall for it, the professionals rise above it. And when the world saw India rise above reckless nuclear talk, it sent a message far beyond one meeting in the United States. It told the world, we are in control. We do not bow to fear. We will decide our actions, not you. That's the mindset of a champion. So the lesson here is this. When the pressure is on, when someone is trying to break your spirit, you have two choices. You can let them control your reaction and show the world your weakness, or you can stay disciplined, keep your head high, and let your strength speak through your calmness. That's how you win. That's how you lead. That's how you make the world see you as unshakable. And remember, the loudest person in the room is rarely the strongest. The strongest is the one who doesn't need to raise his voice at all. Power is something the world loves to misunderstand. People think it's about having the biggest weapon, the most soldiers, or the loudest threats. But that's not power. That's insecurity trying to look like power. Real power is something you earn over years, over decades, by proving yourself again and again. It's like building muscle. You can't walk into the gym one day, lift a few light weights, and declare yourself the strongest person there. No, real muscle is the result of thousands of hours of training, thousands of disciplined meals, and thousands of times pushing past your limit. That's exactly what India showed on the world stage. They didn't need to roar. They didn't need to throw around nuclear threats to get attention. Their record, their history, their reputation, that's what speaks for them. You see, when someone makes wild threats, it's because they're trying to create fear without having real substance to back it up. Fear is a shortcut. It's the weak man's way to look strong for a moment. But the problem is, fear fades fast. People see through it. They realize the one doing all the shouting doesn't have the stability, the credibility, or the respect to maintain that image. That's why India didn't waste time trading threats. They've built their power through decades of development, through a strong democracy, through economic growth, and through a military that doesn't need to advertise itself in every headline. I've been in competitions where my opponents would try to psych me out before we even got on stage. They'd talk big, they'd strut around, they'd tell everyone how unbeatable they were, and I would just smile, because I knew when the time came, I had the preparation, the training, the conditioning that they didn't. That's how India approached this. They know their power is already established. They don't have to prove it every second. In fact, the more quietly you carry your power, the more it intimidates people, because they realize you're confident enough not to have to keep proving it. Think about the greatest champions in history. Did they run around yelling about how great they were every single day? No, they let their actions do the talking. The same applies in politics, on the battlefield, or in the weight room. A truly powerful person or nation doesn't feel the need to constantly broadcast threats because the world already knows what they're capable of. India's calm, measured response to this nuclear talk wasn't weakness. It was a masterclass in control. It was the same as a world champion stepping onto the stage with a quiet confidence, knowing the work is already done. This is a lesson for all of us. In life, you can either chase power through quick, flashy moves that burn out fast, or you can build real, lasting power through consistent effort and integrity. One will get you noticed for a moment, the other will make you respected for a lifetime. And here's the truth. People can smell fake power. They know when it's all talk, but they also know when it's real. And when it's real, you don't even have to remind them. They feel it. So when India stood in front of the world and responded without panic, without aggression, they reminded everyone, we've earned our place. We've earned our respect. We don't need to scream to be heard. That's a lesson that goes beyond politics. If you want to be truly powerful in your own life, stop trying to impress people with noise. Impress them with consistency. Impress them with results. Impress them by showing that you've earned every ounce of strength you have. That's the kind of power that can't be shaken, can't be faked, and can't be ignored. Courage is often misunderstood. People think it's about charging into battle, about being the first to throw a punch, about showing aggression so that others will fear you. But that's not courage, that's impulse. Real courage is standing firm when the easy thing to do would be to lash out. It's refusing to let fear or anger dictate your choices. And in the face of reckless nuclear threats, India showed exactly that kind of courage. They stood before the world and said, in their actions and words, we will not be pushed into chaos. We will defend ourselves if necessary, but we will always choose peace first. That is not weakness. That is strength at its highest level. When I was young, I saw many bodybuilders get into arguments backstage before competitions. Some would shout at each other, trying to intimidate their rivals before stepping on stage. And I noticed something: the loudest ones were almost always the most insecure. The quiet ones, the ones who just focused on their routine, their breathing, their mental state, they were usually the champions. Why? Because they understood that you win by staying in control. India's reaction to the threats was the same. They didn't allow themselves to be dragged into a shouting match. They didn't mirror the aggression. Instead, they stood their ground with dignity, which in turn made them look even stronger. It's easy to fight when you're provoked. That's human nature. But to resist that urge, to keep a cool head when someone is trying to push you into a fight, that takes real courage. It's like standing in a storm and refusing to be blown over. It's about knowing that you can fight if you have to, but choosing not to unless there is no other way. That's the mindset of someone who truly understands power and responsibility, because once you start responding to aggression with aggression, you are no longer leading, you are reacting. And leaders don't just react, they set the tone. There's also another layer to this. Choosing peace when threatened doesn't just protect you. It sends a message to the world about who you are. It shows your allies that you can be trusted, that you won't make reckless moves that could spiral out of control. It shows your enemies that you are not easy to manipulate, that they can't bait you into a trap, and it tells everyone watching that you have the confidence to hold your fire until it's truly necessary. That's the kind of courage that builds respect not only for today, but for decades to come. And let's be clear, courage is not the absence of fear. It's feeling the pressure, feeling the risk, and still choosing the path that aligns with your principles. India knows the stakes of nuclear threats. They know the consequences of escalation. And yet, instead of matching that dangerous rhetoric, they anchored themselves in calm, reason, and responsibility. That takes more bravery than firing back with equal force. This applies to life outside politics, too. You might face people in your own life who try to provoke you, insult you, or challenge your pride, and the temptation will be to match their energy, to prove you're not someone to mess with. But the truth is, the greatest statement you can make is to rise above it. If you can keep your composure while they lose theirs, you've already won. And that's the kind of victory that doesn't just feel good in the moment, it builds a reputation that lasts. So remember this, true courage is not the absence of conflict, nor is it the eagerness to jump into one. True courage is the strength to hold your position when others are trying to push you off it. It's standing for peace even when war would be easier. It's choosing restraint even when your pride wants revenge. That's how India responded, and that's how every true champion responds when tested.
Leadership is not just about winning arguments or scoring points in the heat of the moment. It's about the message you leave behind, the legacy you build with every word and every action. Anyone can win a shouting match. Anyone can make a loud statement that trends for a day. But a true leader thinks beyond the next headline. They ask themselves, what will this moment say about me, my country, my people, 20 years from now? That's the difference between reacting for applause and acting for history. And when India answered the reckless nuclear threat from Pakistan's army chief, they didn't just respond to a man, they spoke to the entire planet. They reminded the world that leadership is about vision, not intimidation.
When I think about leadership, I think about my bodybuilding career. There were guys who wanted to beat me for the trophy, but there were also those who wanted to be remembered for inspiring the next generation. I always told myself, Arnold, if you win today but people forget you tomorrow, you didn't really win. That's how I approached every decision with the big picture in mind. India's approach to this threat was the same. They weren't just trying to look strong in the moment, they were shaping how the world sees them for years to come.
Here's the truth. Fear fades, but inspiration lasts. A leader who rules by fear will always have to keep proving themselves through more fear, more threats, more pressure, but a leader who inspires through values, through integrity, through wisdom, that kind of leader leaves a mark that doesn't fade. India, by speaking calmly and firmly, gave a masterclass in how to respond to aggression without becoming aggressive. They didn't just shut down the threat, they turned it into a demonstration of their principles. This matters because leadership is contagious. When a big nation responds to threats with panic, it encourages others to do the same. But when a big nation responds with stability, it raises the bar for everyone. It shows smaller nations, allies, and even rivals that there's another way to handle confrontation. That's how leaders shape not just their own image, but the behavior of the world. Think about what people remember about great leaders in history. They don't just remember battles won, they remember the moments of restraint, the moments where choosing the harder, wiser path created a better future. That's exactly the kind of message India sent here. They made it clear that they won't be dragged into a reckless conflict, but they also made it clear that they won't be pushed around. It's a balance, strength without recklessness, peace without submission. In your own life, leadership works the same way. Whether you're running a company, leading a team, or even guiding your family, the real test isn't how you act when things are easy. The real test is how you handle pressure. Do you lash out when someone challenges you, or do you take a breath, think about the long-term impact, and choose a response that builds trust instead of just winning the moment? India chose the second path. And that's why their message reached far beyond one conversation in the US. It wasn't just about proving someone wrong, it was about proving a principle right, that leadership is about setting the tone for the future, not just reacting to the present. So remember this, the greatest leaders are not remembered for the battles they fought, but for the peace they created, the hope they inspired, and the example they set. If you want to lead like that, stop thinking about what will make you look powerful right now. Start thinking about what will make you respected forever. That's the kind of leadership that moves nations and the kind of leadership India just showed the world. At the end of the day, respect is not something you can demand. It's something you earn. And you earn it by showing that you will never back down from your principles, no matter how much pressure is put on you. The world doesn't admire those who fold at the first sign of trouble, nor does it admire those who make reckless moves just to look tough. The world respects the one who stands their ground with confidence, with clarity, and with unshakable belief in their mission. That's exactly what India did when they faced the nuclear threat from Pakistan's army chief. They didn't run, they didn't bow, they didn't get dragged into an emotional reaction. They stood firm, they made their position clear, and they reminded the world that they will never let fear dictate their choices. When I was competing, there were always moments when an opponent would try to intimidate me. Maybe they'd talk big in interviews. Maybe they'd make a dramatic entrance backstage to get into my head. But I learned early on that the moment you let someone else control your emotions, you lose. The only way to win in sports, in life, in politics is to stay unshakable. That's why I never back down from my preparation, from my strategy, from my vision. India's response was the same. They didn't allow threats to rewrite their playbook. They stayed true to their strategy, and that's why they came out looking stronger than ever. Never backing down doesn't mean you have to be aggressive all the time. It means you refuse to compromise on your core values. You can be calm and still be immovable. You can be polite and still be unstoppable. The important thing is that you send a message, not just to your opponent, but to everyone watching, that you will not be swayed by intimidation. This creates a ripple effect. Allies trust you more, rivals think twice before challenging you, and the undecided begin to see you as a pillar of stability. India's unshakable stance didn't just stop at one moment in a meeting room. It sent a clear signal to the entire world: we will defend ourselves if we must, but we will never let fear dictate our destiny. That's a statement that inspires not just citizens at home, but nations across the globe who are watching and learning, because in times of tension, people look for examples of strength. They want to see someone who won't crumble under the weight of pressure. In your own life, you'll have moments where you're tested, moments where fear creeps in, where it feels easier to compromise just to make the discomfort go away. But those are the moments that define you. If you stand tall then, if you hold your ground when it's hardest, you come out of that moment bigger, stronger, and more respected. And once you've built that kind of reputation, it becomes your shield. People will know you're not someone who breaks under pressure.